a few warrant articles we're going to quickly go through. That advisory is already voted on. And
Okay.
then I'll call for each of you to open your meeting.
But I guess I'm sitting with. But birds don't lie.
Okay.
Be okay, as long as I don't get attacked.
Among capital budget. Uh-oh.
Okay, where did Paul go? So it's 7:30. Is Paul still in the room?
Yes, he's here.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's 7:30 p.m. I'd like to call to order the Cohasset Select Board meeting of Thursday, March 19th, 7:30 p.m. It's a hybrid meeting, live in person, 91 Sawyer Street at Wilcott Commons, and virtual remote. You can follow along on Facebook live streaming on Cohasset 143 TV or on the Zoom link on the back side of the agenda. This meeting is being recorded. So can I have a call to order, please? Roll call.
Paul Ruth, present.
David Frog, present.
Ellen Mar, present. Okay, I'd like to invite everyone to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, and indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Justice for all. Okay. So first up is for the Select Board 2026 Annual Town Meeting acceptance of warrant articles, review, vote. We discussed many of these at our last meeting. I see advisory has voted all either 8-0 or 9-0. Michelle, I just noted from our agenda versus the warrant article copy, different article numbers, like Article 18 in the
It's
warrant
17.
copy is Article 17.
Correct. And Article 20 is 19 and 21 is 20.
Okay, okay. All right. I don't, I've had a chance to go through these. As I mentioned, we did talk about these before. Does anyone on the select board have any comments or questions for Ms. Leary?
None
Okay,
at this time.
okay. So can I have a motion to approve Article 11, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 91 liability?
So moved.
Second,
Second,
all in favor, roll call?
Paul Grady, aye.
David Frog, aye.
Ellen Mar, aye. Can I have a motion to approve Article 12, additional real estate exemptions annual renewal?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call, please.
Paul Grady, aye.
David Frog, aye.
Ellen Mar, aye. Article 13, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 41A. May I have a motion?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second,
All in favor, roll call, please.
Paul Grady, aye.
David Frog, aye.
Ellen Mar, aye. Article 14, rescission of authorized but unissued debt. May I have a motion?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second,
All in favor, roll call, please.
Paul Grady, aye.
David Frog, aye.
Ellen Mar, aye. Article 15, Cohasset water rate structure. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call.
Paul Grady, aye.
David Frog, aye.
Ellen Mar, aye. Article 17, creation of revolving fund for cemetery fees. May I have a motion?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second,
All in favor, roll call.
Paul Grady, aye.
David Frog, aye.
Ellen Mar, aye. Article 20, amendments to the South Shore Regional Vocational Technical High School Agreement. This is to allow Pembroke into the vocational district. May I have a motion?
Is it Article 19, Madam
Article,
Chair?
yeah, yes, you're correct. I misspoke. It's Article 19, amendments to the South Shore Regional Vocational Technical High School Agreement. May I have a
So
motion?
moved.
Oh, thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, roll call.
Paul Grady, aye.
David Frog, aye.
Ellen Mar, aye. And finally, Article 20, Amendment to Cohasset Bylaw, Chapter 244, Section 11, 244-2 and 244-4. May I have a motion?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, roll call.
Paul Grady, aye.
David Frog, aye.
Ellen Mar, aye. All right, thank you. Ms. Leary, the only thing I would request at some other point in time for Article 14 is there a list of authorized but unissued debt?
There is, and you'll see those in the motions in the coming weeks. I can
Okay.
send you the,
I'm sorry?
I can send you the list, but it will be outlined in the motions in the coming weeks as well.
Okay. Well, if you could just circulate the list to the select board so that we're familiar with it, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
Are there any other questions on the warrant? I think we'll wrap up a lot more of the warrant next week on the 24th. Okay. All right. We are ahead of schedule, but I think that's okay. So Mrs. Stino, would you like to call your committee to order?
Yes, a call to order the Cohasset Advisory Committee on Thursday, March 19th at 7:45 PM. Could I get a roll call, please? Mike Barkley is absent. Tom Callahan,
I'm here.
Mark Cameron,
Mark Cameron here.
Michael Flaherty,
Michael Flaherty here.
Diane Kennedy,
And Kennedy here.
Mark Maggi. Is he on Zoom?
Yes,
Okay.
I am. Good evening.
Okay, thank you. Vince Thornton is going to be late and Gina Stino present.
Thank you. Ms. Franklin, do you want to call to order your capital budget committee?
Yes, I'd like to call to order a meeting of the Capital Budget Committee. Thursday, March 18th.
19.
19th, sorry about that. I have a call to order, roll call of who is present. Ralph Dormisser is not joining us tonight.
Kathy Forrest present.
Chris Peisch, present.
Rob Casemeyer here.
Is Chrissy on? Zoom?
I don't see your name.
Okay. Susan Franklin, present.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to see a presentation for the 135 King Street. And then we'll have a conversation about 44 Elm Street. So Mr. Pratt, as chair of the Public Safety Facilities Committee, are you going to lead the conversation?
Yes, it will. Madam Chairman, I'd like to call my committee meeting to order if that's appropriate.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Call to order for the Public Safety Facilities Committee meeting of March 19th in a joint meeting with the Select Board, Capital Budget and Advisory. Could I have a roll call, please? Rich Kinship,
Rick Kincher here.
Nate Spader, out there. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton present.
Doug McGregor,
Doug McGregor, present.
Don Stasko,
Tom Stasko, Brunswick.
Dan Tarpey,
Ian Tarpey here.
Glenn Pratt, present. So we're set to go, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. So do you have a few opening comments, Mr. Pratt, or?
I do.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Glenn Pratt, Chair of the Public Safety Facilities Committee. We're here tonight to present our recommendation to the Select Board on the work we've been doing over the last 6 months, taking a relook at the public safety facility, which we had proposed last fall, and it was decided it wasn't ready to go to town meeting and that we should take a closer look. Since then, what's happened is that our working group has been chartered as a committee. We have 8 members now, 5 new citizens who hadn't previously been looking at this issue. We also have representatives from Advisory Board, Capital Budget, the fire and police unions, as well as the fire and police chiefs that work with us at our meetings. bringing a lot of very varied and interesting new insight into the needs and some of the questions that we have before us. We think that working with them, we've come up with a way to find solutions to their needs today and into the future at a price that the taxpayers will be able to afford. Our group, over the last 6 months, we've looked at various alternatives, including finding a different location in the 3A corridor, expanding the public safety complex, which is currently on Elm Street. We've looked at eliminating large portions of the building we had originally planned for 3A. And working with our architects and engineers and our project manager, we have done benchmarking with other communities and what they've built for public safety buildings over the last 7 or 8 years. We've looked at value engineering. We've looked at cost comparisons to other towns that may have done bigger projects to find out if our per unit costs were the same. So we've done a lot of looking, and the plan we propose tonight, it meets the future needs of the police department, and it meets the needs of the fire department currently, and it's an opportunity for us to expand the fire facility in the future. And it also makes easier some of the renovations that we know we have to do to the Elm Street complex when police move out. So the proposal, which we're going to have Dan Pallotta present shortly, is about $520 per year on taxes for a value property of $1 million. There'll be a calculator that'll be available later on for people to check their own property, but that's the ballpark we're in. So yesterday, the 17th, Tuesday, at our meeting, our committee of Will Ashton, Doug McGregor, Nate Spada, Dan Tarpey, myself, and Rich Kinshey voted unanimously to present tonight our proposal and ask that your board put it on the town meeting warrant and also approve the article like you have some others earlier this evening. So I'd like to turn it over now to Dan Pallotta, who does have a slideshow, which Kevin probably has ready to go. Is that true? I can't see Dan there, but.
Yeah. Where do I go? Hey, come on, Paula. I'm not doing this by myself.
Dan, you got it.
Thank you very much. I have with me Paula Claridge. Am I on?
Yeah, we just, tap it till it's red. Here we go.
Oh, touching it.
No, it's on right now.
So Mr. Pallotta, before you begin, since I can't see all around the table, Mr. Grady, if members of the other committees have comments or questions, could you recognize them for me, please?
Of course I can.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. With me, my name is Dan Pallotta. I'm the president of P3 Inc. out of Norwell. We are project managers that do nothing but municipal work throughout the Commonwealth. We were hired 2 years ago and worked through the initial study as well as hiring the architect, advising on hiring the architect, which is HKT, represented here by Paula Claridge. And when the project was withdrawn right before the town meeting, we went right back at it with a new group of volunteers to look at the work that we had done and to explore some alternatives that may be more palatable to the end users as well as to the budget. As the chairman had indicated, we settled on what we're going to present here tonight. So I'm going to ask that we switch the slide, please. You're all familiar with the site by now, I'm sure. And the site is the building that you purchased as a town. It once held a gym and currently holds a couple of offices for the town. the project took a look at the entire site and tried to determine whether we could actually put a fire substation at one time, as well as the entire police operation within this footprint. And we found that we could. The site is not the easiest of sites, but it is a site that navigates itself well to the uses required by the police department and the future fire department. Next slide, please. I'm going to ask the architect to walk you through the building. She's the most intimate with this structure. And note that the square on the left side was what we proposed originally as the fire station. Is no longer going to be built out as a fire station. It's going to be built out as a garage, but it's going to have the ability, when Cohasset is ready and financially able to add that as a station, you'll be able to fit it out with relative ease. So rather than put something up that we'd have to knock down or put something up that would not be conducive to the future, we designed for the future while not building the entire future. Paula?
So what we're looking at here is the first floor plan. The central portion, the areas that are primarily that light yellow color are all office areas. And we also have a large training room and community room that will also be used as the emergency operations center. There will be, we've added the north addition is the detention areas. The dark green spot you see there is the Sallyport, where the police officers will bring in detainees and then take them in through the booking area, which is just to the top of that in the light yellow, where new holding cells will also be. The two kind of beige spaces to the right are for vehicle maintenance and for vehicles that are brought in as evidence and they need to be processed. And then, as Dan said, to the far left-hand side there is what was formerly going to be the fire substation. We're now just building that out so that they have the ability to use the garage to park the additional fire apparatus that they have. But the rest of the space will not be built out. The walls that you see there are only there because they support the upper floor. And what's on the second floor is the main mechanical and electrical rooms that will serve the entire building.
Next slide, please.
So on the second floor, the area contained by the black darker walls is the existing building, and that's going to be all primarily police department offices and operations there. It'll have evidence, roll call, and locker rooms for the police officers as well. The addition to the north has a storage area that opens out onto the vehicle parking bays and the evidence bay. And then we have several meeting rooms and a wellness room there because the police officers are now incorporating more attention to mental wellness and as well as female officers. So it also uses the lactation room. But after going out and experiencing possibly traumatic events, it gives them a space where they can go and kind of decompress. And then to the left side, again, over the previous fire department substation, and that's parking garage area, we have the main mechanical and electrical rooms that are in the dark green, and then a storage area. And then the main large rectangle is open to the vehicle parking. And these are the exterior elevations of the building. It hasn't changed from our previous design that we saw last year and what was bid. And just the only difference is that portion to the left is not being fitted inside, but the exterior will remain the same.
And that's a picture from looking up driveway from 3A. Next slide, please. And of course, the advisory committee wants to know the numbers, and the capital improvement committee wants to know the numbers. The construction estimate that we had done for this particular variation of the plans is 21,288,138. The communication information technology is all included in this scenario, with the exception of the what would have been the fire station. New furnitures, fixtures and equipment that is required for a police station. There's a lot of things that go in a police station. Is budgeted out at $400,000. We expect to get a back charge from the utility company to give us the proper size transformer, and we've budgeted $131,000 for that. And we're gonna be testing the soils as we're building, testing the building retrofit welds that we have to do to stiffen up the structure to make it a Group 4 structure. And all the concrete that we have to pour, everything gets tested and certified as to the specifications. And commissioning. All new buildings today are really complicated to run. They require computers to run. It's a requirement of the engineer of the new energy code to have a building management system, and we want to make sure that during design, a commissioning agent looks at the design and it's perfect, and that when we complete the project, that it works out, that the commissioning checks off everything, that the building is working perfectly. And we have soft costs, which is project management and architect's fees and contingency to bring the project total cost to $26,765,000 change. That is it in a nutshell. Do you have any questions? Fire away. We're here to answer them.
Make sure those are on.
The only question that I have is, can we get a copy of the slide deck?
Of course.
Okay, great.
Hold it down.
I can touch as well. A loud voice.
Yeah, we were trying before.
See, I'm not the only one who can't operate that.
She'll talk to them special.
Maybe I'm just cold.
A little genie maneuvers. Just a couple questions, and I think you may have started to answer one of them, which was that 600, and I didn't write it down, $688,000 just in kind of computers and technology. I mean, you know, we're not even running we have Shrek for calls and all that. It just seems like a lot of money, and I just want to understand a little bit more about what that entails.
It is a lot of money. We have radios that we have to deal with, antennas we have to put up. We have to have two methods of fiber optics to come into the building. To have redundant communication so that if one goes down, the other one can pick it up. With all of these numbers and the bid we received on the last budget, you know, our goal isn't to spend your money. Our goal is to come in less. We hope to be less on all of these, but these are the numbers that we projected out. Technology is the last thing that we as a team will buy. Because if we bought it today, it would be outdated by the time the building was done. So we buy that towards the end and we do the best we can estimating it.
And then my other question was just about the last project that was presented last spring, which I think was a delta of just over $1 million. So I just want to wrap my head around kind of what has changed between then and now, and to only realize that much savings.
The last project was presented at, I don't remember the exact number that was presented to you guys, but on our end was $25,957,000. 936. That was the baseline option that we had put together for a budget on that. I do recall that when we received the bids, the bid had come in a little bit lower, and you might have been presented a little bit lower of a number.
27.
I thought it was 27, yeah, so.
I mean, I just going by what we presented.
In one way, the argument, you know, goes where every time we deny a project, we know that the next time around, the costs are gonna go up, so there's certainly that.
The construction costs went from 19,780 to 21,288. Between the time that we went to town meeting and today.
Wow.
And that is actually, you know, I ask all of you to go look at some of the charts that are available on public construction. You'll see that it's not a straight line, it's a parabolic curve. And I'd like to tell you it's slowing down, but I would be lying to you. Man,
We make sure that it's on. There we go.
I don't know who's directing traffic.
Right here, I don't need your name, I apologize, but the lady at the very end, Town Capital,
Chrissy.
Chrissy Francona.
Yeah, I have a few questions. First off, why is there no traffic light in options B and C?
So there was no traffic light in option B and C you obviously have a copy of what we went over last Tuesday. I didn't present B and C here tonight. So you're going over what we presented last Tuesday. And what we present, the reason we don't have a traffic light in B and C is because we don't have the fire station component for B and C. What we explained to the committee and the committee agreed to was that we would run the infrastructure to the street for the light, and that when the town could afford to staff and build the fire station, we would have the light at that point in time.
Okay. What is the square footage for the current plan that you just presented?
23,000 plus or minus a few feet.
Okay. And is that just for the police station? That's
That is
for the entire.
That's for the police station and the garage.
Okay. One of the documents I was referred to was the Sutton comparison, which looks like it's about 12,000 square feet, I think. Could you explain why?
That would be one floor. That would be one floor.
So there
So-
are 2 floors there?
So when we did A, B, and C, we wanted to highlight the first floor because the major changes were on the first. So what you're looking at is the difference between A, B, and C. And I might as well just explain what A, B, and C were. A was to just rebid the original proposal. And that would have gone up to 28,399,000. B was to not do anything with the fire station, no foundation, nothing, grade it down to against the building. And that came in at 24,970,000. So those 3 sheets showing those square footages relate to that floor plate so that it would be easy for people to understand the magnitude of the difference between A, B, and C.
For the Sutton space?
I'm
The
sorry.
comparison.
I think she's looking for comparison, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
A comparison between the Sutton Police Department. and
Oh, Sutton, oh, I thought you said, I'm
what
sorry.
we're proposing.
Yeah, it was one of the suggested documents.
So,
I don't know anything about that piece.
the numbers, no.
Okay, so it's at least 10,000 square feet bigger.
I'm sorry, I'm just not familiar with the Sutton police station. I don't have the data in front of me.
Okay, it was just one of the documents that we were suggested to look at, so I did look at it, and it seems like it's about 10,000 square feet bigger than that facility, so. Fine, thank you.
There are police stations come in all shapes and sizes. This one was designed for the function of the town of Cohasset's police operations based on falls, based on future needs of the station, and based on the ability to get detainees in and out.
Yes.
Correct me if I say anything wrong, chief.
No.
Paul.
Paul, you gotta be the coordinator.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Callahan?
Thank you. I have 2 questions. So what are we saving by not building out the fire station? And in this plan, will there be any fire equipment at the station under this plan? What's the dollar amount we're saving by not building it out?
By not building the fire station, you're gonna say, I'm not doing the math quick enough in my head, Tom, but I will give you the 2 numbers and you can do the math in your head, because you're smarter than I am. 24,970,000 was the cost of not doing the fire station. Doing the fire station complete is 28,399,000. And the plan that we're recommending that the town adopt at this point in time is 26,782,000. So it's 26,782 versus 24,970.
Or the way you're proposing it, roughly another 2 million or so from what you're proposing. Now, second question was, is there going to be any equipment, fire equipment at this station the way it's being proposed?
So it's being designed that they can park spare equipment that you have that doesn't currently have a home.
Does anybody know how many current staff we have in the fire department? I don't know. I used to know, but I don't.
Chief is here.
We have 22 line firefighters, chief and assistant chief, so we're at 24. We have 2 openings that we're trying to fill, so we'll be up to 24 line firefighters, hopefully by the end of the calendar year.
Okay.
I can answer that question. Just fact is that the number 3, it's the number 3 truck.
Engine 3 and
Will be going, engine 3 will be going up there for storage and to use as a backup. And also the ancillary space, God forbid, in case of emergency, we do have room up there to put the vehicle. It also frees up space that in its current incarnation. Hopefully get the second ambulance in so we can get that in without any reconstruction. So
But no personnel. There'll be no fire personnel up there.
And Paul, to clarify, that's how the department is run today in its current state. There is no change. The fundamental change is that engine 3 which is the backup engine, right, is going to physically move to King Street, which will allow the backup ambulance to come out of the barn behind Town Hall and be put under the roof and control and care of the fire department on Elm Street.
Thank you.
So no staffing changes, no additional equipment. Same program.
Is that why we're not building it out? Is a staffing issue? Anybody?
Well, it's a staffing issue, but it's also cost. So it helps save cost right now, and then down the road, we can look at it again and see what the cost is. But to have the actual shell in place, when the site work done now, it'd be a big savings to the town. Big savings.
I mean,
And it allows us, again, take that ambulance that's behind Town Hall and put it under our roof, and we can put it into service when we need it. Right now, we can't do that. Which doesn't help provide the service that we need to the community when our primary ambulance is out of town, but now allow us to get our second ambulance up and running and not rely on mutual aid at times. Because mutual aid now, those communities are getting busier too.
I know. Okay. Thanks.
Well,
This gentleman over,
Rob Casemeyer.
Mr. Casemeyer.
So this is all incremental money. In other words, none of this money has been spent to this point. Is that correct? You've bought the facility. Have you, any of the money that you spent, is that also included in here or not?
this is what is needed to finish the project.
So it's all incremental.
Money that you've.
Okay. The second question I have on it is this includes nothing for any additional modification to the 62 Elm Street facility, is that right?
That is correct.
That's just for this facility,
That's correct.
all incremental.
So,
This-
hi,
oh,
Paul, this is Ellen. Can we just clarify that point? So this is 27 million inclusive of the 10.2 or not?
We still have a remaining $6 million.
Right.
That can be deducted from this total amount for a project amount of 20 plus million.
20,700,000.
Yeah, so I wanted to make sure that people understood. It's not 27 on top of 10.2. The original 10.2.
Thank you.
Ms. Francona.
Yeah, sure. So to follow up on Rob's question, I would just like to understand the full picture of the cost. So what do we expect to spend approximately to retrofit the existing station? And then what I understand right now today, there's a difference, obviously, if we do the full fire build out today, what would we expect in a future state, including that traffic light? Like, what are we gonna go back to the town with in a few years with another ask?
So that's a loaded question because I can't tell you what the state of the economy will be in the year that you come back to do that. You know, our stated objective on this one was to try and do something that wouldn't have to be ripped out and paid for twice. You know, putting in the conduit for the light, putting in the building for the future station, just not finishing out the building. And running all of the necessary utilities in the building, but not any of the finishes in the building. So we were very conscious about what the 3 A, B, and C was, and segregating the A, B, and C. And C was the direction that we went in because there was not an ability to staff the station at the time that we were studying this. And the cost to if we did it today, the cost difference would be an additional few $1 million to fit out the station. But it's not going to be today.
Mark?
I think to Mr. Francona, to clarify your question, having been in part of the public safety meetings, the traffic light, the scenarios with the traffic light exist because when there isn't a traffic light in the plan, there's no active fire station there. The only need for the traffic light is if there's an operating fire station there. And right now there is no plan other than in that scenario A, which was the scenario from last version. So B and C don't include a traffic light because there's no operating fire station that would require a light to stop traffic on 3A.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand, what are we gonna go back to the public and ask them for in a few years for the rest?
Well, again, it's what the public asks for in a few years, right? So the process here was by the scenario of having the additional bays, limited the modifications that need to happen on Elm Street. Now we don't need any additional bays for apparatuses on Elm Street, correct, Chief?
Correct. That's correct.
So that limits the need for any additional apparatus bays on Elm Street. Elm Street can only happen after King Street is built. King Street is going to take at least 2 years from now before that's done. There is no way that we can tell you what that's going to cost for a project that isn't even going to start for 2 to 3 years. So we also want to be considerate of the town's money and not go through the extent of designing out a whole building on Elm Street if this project on King Street does not happen. It is a prerequisite. There is nothing that can happen in any scenario here on Elm Street if this does not get done. So to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in design fees is a waste if King Street doesn't get built.
I'm not suggesting we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So that's why we need to take this step so that we can do some slight interior modifications there. And it's going to be a couple of years before. And if we price it in today's dollars, it's going to be more expensive in 3 years when we actually can go and do the work. So it's beneficial to us to address King Street now. And this is how, there's no scenario where we can give you an accurate number today for something that's going to happen in 2 to 3 years.
Ms. Kennedy?
So my question is, what are we going to be asking for on May 4th? What's going on the warrant? So I assume it's a debt exclusion and it's the $27-ish million minus
Minus
something.
6 million.
So just clarify, you're agreeing with, it's going to be approximately a $20 million debt exclusion that we're asking for.
20 million, about closer to 21. The $20,764,000 is what will go to the warrant.
As a debt exclusion.
Correct.
Ms. Francona?
I understand, like, we're not gonna price something out, in 3 years. I think what I'm trying to understand is, I think this project has faced significant public backlash over the last couple of years there's been a lot of whiplash on price. And as we go to the public again with this, I'm trying to ask the questions to understand what will we be going back to them again with. I understand it's more of an art than a science at this point. But to that end, I would also like to understand what is the expected increase in operating expenses related to putting this building online?
I'll let you speak to the operating expenses, but
It's gonna cost more than it costs today to operate this building than it does to operate the police and fire station because of the fuel source. So this building is 100% electric, meeting the energy code and the goals of the governor. And that generally has an increased cost. I don't have the exact figure of what that would cost with me tonight, but we can certainly make sure that you have that prior to your decision at town meeting.
Susan?
Yeah, just want to say that I think, well, I'd like some clarification, because I see the adding the substation as saving money in some ways, because if we don't do that and we decide to do it later, the price is going to be higher, or we're going to have to build it over at Elm Street, right? So in a way, we're locking in the envelope of the building, which is the most expensive thing to do, right? And if we had to go back and do it again later, we'd have more site work probably, and that's adding too, right? Because the second time around, they just had the upcharge to having to come back a second time. So that just leaves really the interior of that space, and I'm looking at it. It's basically interior walls, maybe a small kitchen
So
and a toilet. Oh, that really
I
would.
hope you're gonna give them more than one toilet.
It's very small, right? Maybe it's a shower.
The walls there are laid out based on the previous plan.
Yeah, the walls are laid out.
So there's a whole decontamination area just off the apparatus bay. There were 2 dorm rooms, a day room, and a report writing and triage room. And those are all things that have been pulled out.
Except for the supporting wall.
Yes, except for the structural steel.
So is that a good way to look at it? What I was saying?
What you were saying is 100% correct, because if you built a 2-bay standalone fire station today, and I would ask someone to find one that would cost an additional $2 million, which is what this is costing the Shell. A new fire stations today are running, 8 to 10 to 11 to $12 million, even substations. So we as a committee and a team really did try to find the most efficient way to provide for Cohasset's future, without building something that would not be used.
And we have Courtney Murphy,
Murphy.
I'm sorry. Courtney Murphy was looking to speak.
Courtney was not recognized when we first did our call to order because I didn't realize that she was on Zoom. So we now know that she's present. So.
Good
she
evening,
has a
everyone.
question.
Thank you, Jean, and thank you, everyone. I just want to, sort of echo Chrissy Francona's comments and, react to some of the comments earlier with regard to, I understand that there's been work done to forecast the needs of one particular site. And while that can be challenging and a full forecast can be challenging, it's going to be more challenging for the public to accept one building without a full long-term forecast on operating and capital needs for the King Street and the Elm Street facilities on an ongoing basis. It's very traditional for most businesses and organizations to think about long-term cost and forecast that. And while I recognize we don't have a crystal ball and costs do change, I think it's going to be challenging without those, forecasts for us to really understand the long-term cost of the holistic picture of this investment.
there's not a question there.
No, I think it just, right, and I think what,
There's not a
I think what the group can do is take that and provide some sort of forecast.
We
It's
certainly,
not gonna be,
we certainly can give you the operating costs.
and give some sort of sense of what Elm Street might be in for here. It's not gonna be an estimate. It's not gonna be a design. It's you're not gonna know that until you go through the programming, until you go through the assessments. In the next 3 years, more is likely gonna break on Elm Street than its current condition. So there's gonna be more repairs that are gonna be needed there in 3 years than in today. And back to Susan's comment about the addition and it's saving money, the addition at that, the fire, those bays on King Street save from any exterior modifications or large exterior modifications on Elm Street. And that's the big savings that people may not recognize right away, is that we don't have to add apparatus bays there. And that's a huge logistical challenge on that site.
I think Gene might have. Can you have a question? To the question of looking at the two sites, I think we do have to realize that the one on Elm Street, if the police move up to King Street, the restoration of that building would be just for the fire, and it would be basically walls in. We would generally not be trying to add on to it, as Mark said. So that is a certain amount of savings, and the types of things that they would need, while there would have to be some upgrades with, wiring and things like that. I don't think it would be to the extent of what the police needed, because the police needed, they needed the upgraded jails, they needed the place to hold the guns, they needed the evidence room beyond the regular, meeting rooms and or offices and things like that. So there were things that make that one on King Street, a level 4 kind of building, with some of the things that the police have that the fire doesn't. So that also drives up the cost per square foot from what, say, Elm Street might be for the fire. And then, of course, with the extra bays up there, though, that the extra equipment for the fire can be put up there, which would save them. So a piece of what would be done at Elm is actually sitting on King Street with the extra equipment. So, but I'm sure a number can be provided, but at best, it's going to be a loose estimate without the proper designs from the walls in.
Yeah, I do also think the operating budget piece is helpful. I mean, I think many residents will want to know if we need to fire more teachers to be able to provide for this building.
Can I just say something to that?
Please.
This is a project that we have talked about in this town for a long, long time, and kicked the can down the road for a long, long time. We have a building that's far outdated. Yes, now we will have 2 public safety buildings instead of 1. Our operational costs are going to go up, but we need it. It's not a question of it's optional. And that means the operating costs on a yearly basis for 2 buildings is going to be more than 1 building. And I think people just need to face that at some point you have to upgrade your facilities. We did it with our schools 20 years ago. There's those who want to do it again. And now we need a modern public safety building. And we should be informing the government leaders in this town, we should be telling the people and emphasizing the need for this project. And so, yes, we're going to have to swallow the cost to operate 2 buildings instead of 1 on a yearly basis, and that's just a fact of life. Because we can't keep operating the police station in its current condition. It's already been cited how many times for being inadequate. We have to bite the bullet, and if we keep putting this off and keep kicking the can down the road, it will just cost more and more and more. So, I mean, I'm sure the operational cost is going to be a number that might shock me compared to today, again, because we're going to have brand new building, far more technology, but it's going to last us the next 50 years. And that's just the price of having to have a modern facility and up-to-date facilities. And if you can project what the operating costs would be, great, but that shouldn't be a deciding factor.
But though, that's all I'm asking for, is just the full, Courtney's right, you would never look at a project like this in an organization.
Government is not,
look at a
government
project
is not business. With all due respect to Courtney, people keep making these analogies to private business. It doesn't run the same way. And I get incensed when I hear that argument. If a projection can be given, fine, but that shouldn't, again, it should not be the deciding factor. We need to do this. We've put it off too long.
And the indicator will give you the input.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to comment. I just think the inputs are important because these are questions we're going to get at town meeting. And if we want the project to advance, we prepared to answer the questions. This is another question that I anticipate will come, and it is, have we found any efficiencies in using a building that already exists? Or is that building tripping us up in any way or costing us more money? Or is it actually providing at least one structure that's...
Clarify which building.
I'm sorry, King Street. King Street, yeah.
The question is, buying King Street for 2.1 million, did you save overall? We did do that analysis in the first go around.
Yeah.
And I think we had demonstrated was a significant savings. I don't remember the number off.
Outside of the real estate though, just in terms of the building, is that...
In the terms of the building.
Okay, thank you.
So
The structural system.
I assume the building was 2.8 and the real estate.
Right.
Anyway, just the ability.
Right, if we were to raise the building, for example, and start from scratch, would it be basically the same amount of money or have we saved?
It'd be a lot more.
Okay, that's great, thank you.
Mr. Ashton.
I just want to go back to something Mr. Callahan said, that there's a definitive need for this, and being on this committee, I have not seen that definitive need. I went back and read all the DPH reports. The only failure for the jail cell was a security printout. So I don't think that justifies building an entire new station. So I don't think we should take it as a given that there's a need for this.
So why did you vote for it?
I voted to take it to town meeting because I think the people should vote for it. I don't agree with it.
I have a question on that.
Sure.
You've been on that committee since its inception.
Yeah.
You were asked on as a citizen. You were given ample opportunity
I brought it up.
to offer your input and also to make suggestions, which you did.
Yes.
But you sat through meetings. I sat through many meetings with you. And I've never to date seen a follow-up as to a better proposal. I'm gonna take some exception to that. You can laugh all you want, Mr. Ashton.
I've done
But
15 different mock-ups of
you
buildings.
did,
And this architect.
I think you're speaking. Hold on a second, Mr. Ashton. The architects here, licensed architects, are you one?
Well, then why?
Are you, I'm asking you a question. No one asked you. You came up with a proposal, but you had the opportunity to make suggestions.
There's no need for this.
No, I'm asking you a question. Are you a licensed architect?
We didn't fail except for a security printout.
But it's,
We're gonna build a whole new station because of it.
we didn't fail because of what?
There's a security printout on the DPH report. That's the only
Because
reason
of
we
this,
failed.
because of this house.
Yeah. That's an easy fix if our facilities would just fix it.
And then do what? Just,
Then we wouldn't fail.
I can address that. We've failed every year. With the background, the Department of Public Health comes in every year and they inspect our cell block. The cell block is antiquated. It is bars and it is retrofitted plexiglass Lexon on it. So yeah, it's an antiquated cell block. It's not handicap accessible. And it is, she's saying it's a disgrace. She's taken the tour. DPH fails us every year because the paint is chipping, the fixtures, the ceiling are hanging. There's not proper video or audio monitoring.
None of these things are in the DPH.
They are. You pick and choose which you choose to.
I got all last 10 years of it. I've looked at all of it.
I do too. I write the correction plans every year. So, I have the lieutenant here who oversees the cell block and he got his hand raised. I'll let him address that.
I'm just curious, so speaking from perspective of the president,
I just would like to clarify.
I don't know if we can hear.
Yeah, well, I think you should.
Loudly.
Some of the people at microphones.
Yes.
Come on up.
Grab a microphone up there.
And we'll need his name and address too, please.
I'm the president of the Police Superior Officers Association, Gregory Lennon. I just would like to clarify your comments. Are you suggesting that aside from the condition of the cell block, that the building is otherwise sufficient for our purposes?
No, I'm saying that the need is not the cell block.
Okay.
I'm saying you need some more office space. You don't need 23,000 square feet.
Right. I wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Back to the cell block is not within the standards. We do fail every year, despite crashing Desby Red. I've seen this these haphazard reports and studies that he makes attempts at, and quite frankly, they're not accurate. Picks and chooses what he decides to tell you, and a lot of times it is not accurate, and that has been demonstrated. Thank you.
I sent everyone on all these committees those reports. I hope you read them.
Was there a question from something?
Do we have any other questions?
Thank you. I had one before we spoke. Thank you to the architects and the committee, just so we can be clear for the citizens and everyone, with the information that you received in looking over this, that in the design, the current design that we're going to be going to town meeting for, I just wanted to clarify that this upgrade of this building would meet the needs of the department, and it couldn't be built any smaller, because obviously the square footage drives the price. So if you tell me the square footage of what the project is, I can certainly tell you the price. So I just want to make sure that if you could clarify the size and the scope, and that does it meet the needs of the department, and could it have been built smaller or not? Thank you.
Mr. Pratt has his hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to make one comment about, we get a lot of people saying to us that there are other stations they can point to that have been built less money and less square footage. And after discussions with a lot of people and looking at a lot of those, which people sometimes refer to as benchmarking, it really has to be, you have to compare the police operations rather than the bricks and the mortar. That's the real thing that goes on. Some of these towns that we're shown comparisons to look at, they don't have state parks, they don't have harbors, they don't have all those things. So it really, unless you're a person in the police business, it's very hard to do a benchmarking comparison just by looking at a set of plans for a building they may have built. Thank you.
I was just going to speak to the size of the building, and we were given an existing building that was of a certain square footage that we had to deal with. And the first thing we did when we got this project was did programming with the police department, with the fire department. We developed a whole program based on their operations, their functions, the rooms that they need, the equipment they need to house, the functions for bringing prisoners in, to detain them, to process them, the things that the police officers have to do in their daily work. So we've got this whole list of rooms and spaces that need to function. And just so happens that the grand total of the square footage that we came out with was 23,426. The building that we've designed is about 23,000. So I would say that doesn't always happen. It matches up so closely. But based on their needs and the operations that they have, we gave them the spaces, just the spaces that they need. There's no extra, there's no additional. That probably, if it was built smaller, that would hinder their ability to operate and function in the way that they need.
Thank you. So, Mr. Grady, are there no further questions?
Are there any further questions?
I would just like to, I'd like to ask Mr. Pratt, Mr. Pratt, at the beginning of your comments, at the beginning of this part of the meeting, you talked about some of the options you looked at. Could you just maybe go into a little bit more depth? You said you looked along the 3A corridor. What were available parcels that you looked at or buildings, and why did you rule them out?
Well, there are 13 parcels of land on the 3A corridor. Many of them are privately owned. Some of the others are environmentally challenged or just plain too small. So that's why they were all ruled out. Privately owned, which would incur a cost to acquire them, which would add to the cost of the project. Environmentally prohibitive or just too small. So that's why we couldn't find anything on 3A. And there is really no other part of the community where a public safety facility should be, except the 3A corridor. The other things that we looked at that I spoke of earlier, I think Dan covered when he was talking about should we go with the plan we had last year? Should we go with not having the fire building on? Those were the other options.
Okay.
We went away from them because they didn't make financial sense or long-term sense or take care of current needs for police.
Okay.
We also, if I may, Mr. Chairman, we also looked at different configurations of the site. Eliminating parking in the back. Could the police department function without the parking in the back? They could. Could the fire and police function without the back? They could. So we looked at that. We looked at it was possible to bring the parking all the way to the state highway line. We couldn't. There's stormwater issues. There's septic issues. There's all sorts of things that kind of help guide us to the plan that we have today. But we did look at everything that was brought up after round one before digging into round two.
Okay. Thank you. And then, Mr. Pratt, you had indicated that looking at Elm Street for expansion to fulfill the needs of the police department, that footprint is just too small.
The footprint is too small. The structure of the building is not suitable for raising it higher, which probably be one of the solutions. We share a difficult parking situation there. We really are a throughway to the housing complex in the back. So it's the wrong place to intensify any sort of municipal operations, whether it be police or fire or even offices for that matter. And the other thing is that we shouldn't put more into that location because it isn't another environmentally sensitive area as we keep focusing on climate change and tides and those kinds of things. It's at a very low elevation. And so going forward, we probably shouldn't plan on investing a lot into that site.
Okay. Okay, are there no further questions? So to my other co-chair.
Yes, Madam Chair, we do.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. My name is Patrick Reardon. I'm a sergeant with the Cohasset Police Department. Been on this advisory or this committee, the Public Safety Committee, for both rounds of this. And I just wanted to make a couple of clarifications real quick. When you guys are deciding this, which way to go and how we're going to do this. So I'm sorry if I said this before. I'm also a resident here at 167 Pond Street. We have to figure out, and as a town, we have to decide as a town, as a community, what we want to do going forward. You know, we have some disagreements about size of the station, but there are basic needs that we need. If you go around to any station, we all have the same needs: booking areas, cell blocks, evidence rooms, places to store like armories, report writing. They're all base needs. So our town might be smaller than other towns, but we still have the same base needs. So this, like Paula said, the programming in the station is basic. There's no frills, there's nothing extra. If you go from Bundle, there might be an extra room here or there, but cutting that off isn't going to save big money. So as a town, we have to decide, you know, we have to bring this forward to the people and decide what kind of level of service we want to provide our citizens. We want to continue to have things falling apart, like station, like town hall. Or do we want to continue to be the town we want it to be? You know, so as a town, we have to decide what level of service we want as citizens and what kind of employees we want to work here. So if we continue to have buildings falling apart, what kind of employees are going to want to work here? So it's just something that, I'd like you guys to think about. I'm thinking about it. I know that my family and friends that live in town are thinking about it, and we have to make that decision. So that's all I want to say.
Sergeant, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
All right. At Elm Street, I've been there. I think some of the people in this room have been there. Where do you see that falling short?
Elm Street?
Yeah, I mean, I could answer it and say everything, but
Sure. Elm Street is just falling apart. Like you walk into our station and the first thing you walk into is the sergeant's area. It's basically a couple of cubicles that have been there forever. And that's where people work. That's where you first walk in. Then we have the squad room, which is where we do training. It's where we do where we charge the tasers. It's where we have our if an emergency is happening, we interview people in there. We interview people that are victims of crimes, and it's a pass through. So you have people walking through there all the time. These people are victims of possible serious crimes. We're trying to keep their privacy, and it's a pass through. It's a very small area. The cells were made in 1960. They don't pass. They don't have a sink in there. They don't have access to water. Anything they need, we have to get them. The bar, it's a safety hazard. Like I said, they fail every year. So it's everything that is there. We're working in it. It's not good.
so
what we're doing.
What happens when you have an overlap? And I'm sure you do, because there are multiple crimes at different points in time, not every day, thank goodness. But what happens when you have someone in that investigative room, or you have to bring someone else in? I don't know how you guys juggle it. That's what I'm asking.
If we have to bring someone else in, we'll use the administrative assistance office if we have to, which is just a table and chair in there.
So that person gets booted out.
People get booted out. If someone's in the squad room, nobody can have any other types of meetings. There's nowhere to eat. Guys trying to eat lunch or anything like that. There's a lot of things going on in a very small space. And the station was designed for half the amount of employees.
There were 6, if I'm not mistaken.
Originally. Now we're up to 21 full time. So it's a lot going on. The town's changed too. Our call numbers have gone up, by like 20-something thousand calls last year. It's a lot of calls. It's not every day.
You're lucky you have to hire some talented police women.
Well, that's the issue we go through as a union. We're trying to bring in good people. Policing's changed over the years. We're a much more community service-based police department. You want people that want to work here, that can de-escalate, that can be part of the community, that want to be here. It's very hard to find a person that can do everything and tend to Cohasset's needs. This isn't Boston. This isn't a big city. We're a small town. We want people that can come to your house and talk to you and not escalate things. We want to be able to work with the community. And we want to get talented people in here.
I'm gonna ask you a question. You don't have to answer it, if you don't mind. But how's morale?
Morale's good. We're excited at the potential to have a new station. Everybody in the department likes working here, and we want to keep those people. So if we want to keep these people, I'm 41. I'm one of the older guys in the department. We have a very young department, and right now it's a buyer's market in law enforcement.
Have we lost any?
We lost one in November. We've lost a few in the last 5 years. We're trying to keep people. The people that we have right now are great officers. So we want to keep these people here. And we need to communicate that to the town, that who do you want showing up at your house? So, it's a buyer's market. Like I said, when I first got on, it was very hard to get on. It was very hard. Now, for whatever reason, people don't want to be police officers anymore. So the quality of the candidate is harder to find now. So departments are looking for people all the time. And these young officers can go wherever they want.
So in other words, they see a shiny new station, say over in Hingham or Situate, if they're down on the South Shore, My
Yeah.
thought is,
It's a very good possibility, sure.
okay.
You know, it's something that we're trying to avoid. We'd like to attract these quality candidates. So it's something that we as a town have to think about what we want.
I appreciate your perspective and thank you for sharing, especially as
Well,
a
you figured it.
member. What I'm trying to understand is, I mean, number one, I don't think anyone should be working in subpar conditions, and by no means am I suggesting that. Number two, this is a holistic situation. Like there's this project, there's Elm Street,
I
there's
agree.
operating expenses, and I
It's
don't
in
think,
schools.
yeah, and
Right.
well, and that, yeah, and that's just within public safety.
Right.
Then you put it into the context of multiple other capital projects, increased operating expenses, and citizens see like a tiny snippet of this, and this project has had zero credibility, in my opinion.
Right.
And so I think we are approaching it in a very challenging way. And what I am trying to understand, I think, are a lot of the questions that voters are going to ask.
Right.
And I just don't think we have all of that information. And frankly, we're not doing you a service right now by presenting something that is not fully baked.
I understand what you're saying, and I get where you're coming from. And as a taxpayer, I get what you're saying. You know, there are all these other projects. But what we have to think about is every time we have a project come down, I mean, we've all been there for it. Every capital project comes up, everybody nitpicks it, everybody is coming at it with, you know, what their expertise is or not expertise, or they hear a rumor or hear something and it gets, you know, blown out of proportion. But we have to make hard choices sometimes. And I don't want my taxes to go up, but I'm willing to pay extra for the services. Like, I'm willing to pay extra for public safety. I'm willing to pay extra for the teachers. You know, we have to figure out at some point, we're going to fall behind as a town.
Yeah.
So if we continue to let these projects go because we don't like this one detail or that one detail, this could have been done better in our opinions, we're going to fall behind as a town. And I personally don't want that to happen. I know that most of us here don't want that to happen, but we have to make tough decisions at some point. And like Mr. Callahan said, how long are we going to kick this down the road? And it's just the price is going to go up. As Mr. Clark said, it's a parabolic curve. So at some point, if we don't go with the station, at what point do we fix it? Or do we build a new station, and how much will it cost, and cost us more in the future, as opposed to doing it correctly now? And I know you have the questions, and I'm hopeful that we can answer all these. But from my standpoint, being on this committee, we've drilled this down as far as we can, and everyone that's been on the committee knows that. But yeah, that's just my opinion. I feel like I've done it a lot. So,
That's something to think when
Thank you.
others.
Does anybody else, gentlemen?
Gregory Lennon again from the Superior Officers Union. I just want to echo what Sergeant Reardon said in terms of what kind of employees we want working for the police department. We are in the process of trying to recruit officers right now. And we're competing with all of the other South Shore and sometimes extended Metro West, Cape Cod police departments that are trying to recruit the same candidates. And similar to the private sector, we have to have an employee value proposition. Like, what are we offering people to work here? Yes, part of it is salary. We're not the highest paid police department, but we're also not the lowest. But people look when they have choices to make in terms, and they have options in terms of where they would like to work, as all applicants do, because of the number of openings that exist currently across the region. They look at other ancillary benefits, which include the physical plant, the workplace. What are we offering in terms of an environment to work in? Currently, what Pat made reference to in terms of the way our station operates, our squad room is our roll call room, it's our interview room, it's our lunch room. My office is the second in command of the police department. It was created by walling off a probably 6 by 12 section to create an office for me. I have a closet in my house that's bigger than my office. I can't leave my office if someone's being interviewed. If there's a victim of a crime being interviewed or a suspect of a crime being interviewed, I literally cannot. I'm held hostage in my office. until the interview is over, or my alternative is to climb out the window, which I believe it or not, I've actually had to do because I had to go somewhere. I mean, it's insanity, like the nature of the workplace that we're working in. Officers come in to eat lunch and they find out that there's a victim of a crime being interviewed, so they have to eat in their car. It's unfair to the officers. And I did hear someone make a comment one time that this isn't going to work. It's too big. It's too expensive. The police officers are just going to have to settle for less than ideal. I don't believe this station, based on the plans, is anything extravagant. I don't believe there's an extra office in the entire building. In terms of the plans, every single square foot is accounted for. And I would, in response to that comment, I would say, well, you know, the public is going to have to settle for less than ideal police officers, because that's what you're going to get. We're going to have a very difficult time recruiting good police officers and retaining them. There are plenty of people out there. Sergeant Reed and I spent hours today going through resumes. There are plenty of people out there applying for police jobs that, believe me, you would not want coming to your house in a time of need, just based on our assessment of their resumes. We're very selective about who we hire. We're very specific about what the characteristics of an ideal candidate is for our police department. We're looking for emotionally intelligent, empathetic, compassionate police officers that are going to respond to your needs. I saw that in a very competent manner. And that's what we're looking for, and that's what we're hoping to recruit. But if they're going to work in a 60, close to 70-year-old police station, we're not going to be able to hire and retain those people. So I would just ask that you take that into consideration in terms of how you decide to vote. Thank you.
Please.
My name is Chase Calcerto. I'm a patrolman. I'm also the union president for the Patrolmen's Union. Just to echo Commander Lennon and Sergeant Reardon's comments, my ultimate goal as the president is retention, the health, and the safety of my officers. The current facility that we are operating out of, it's abysmal. It is not somewhere where I feel that my officers are being appreciated. I think it's going to start affecting morale. We are doing our best to keep everybody happy. We have an excellent group of officers working, both men and women, that I would be happy to have to come to my home if I was ever having an emergency. And I don't want to see you guys lose them. It's not much more than that. I want my guys and my women to stay here. And we're going to lose them if we continue to underappreciate them by making us work at a facility that is not up to standard.
Thank you. So, please, if everybody's all done, thank you. There are some people who wouldn't buy a parachute if they fell out of a plane because they would complain about the price on the way down. And when they were down at 10,000 feet, they would say, maybe if I'm at 5,000 feet, the price might go down and then I can buy the parachute. And even further, they might say, we haven't explored all the options beyond the parachute. And so if I wait till it's 2,500 feet, maybe we can explore all the options. The reason for that is, as Oscar Wilde once put it, is that the person who can count everything knows the value of nothing. The person who falls out of the plane without the parachute does not value the parachute or safety. And so what we need to do here is we need to value the safety of the citizens and the safety of the town and looking forward. When we look at the history of our buildings in Cohasset, and we look at the big picture, for a town, most of our capital needs regarding buildings, we have. The building that you're hearing tonight, the senior center, is already built. We did that over 10 years ago. And in fact, when that was coming up to be built, partly with the trust money and partly with town money, the same issues were brought up. It's too big. Who's going to go here? At the time, there was only a few seniors who were in the portion of the community center, if you remember, doing their lunches there. And they said, what are they going to do with such a big building? No one's going to come, right? Well, they built it and they came, and this senior center is probably one of the jewels of not only Cohasset, but of the South Shore with all the programs that it provides for our seniors. The same thing happened with the library. The library, where you see it now, for those you remember, that used to be the Joseph Osgood School. And there was a question of whether we should turn that into housing, which was originally thought of, or whether it should turn into the school, or excuse me, the library, because the library moved from South Main Street. And the same thing was said on that back in the 90s, was in the library. Who is going to need a library? Because there aren't going to be any books anymore. There's the internet. Well, as you know, the library is one of our great institutions, not only in town, but also in the South Shore. There are still, as I can attest, plenty of books in the library. There's programs for the kids. There's tutoring that goes on there. And it's, again, one of our other institutions in town. When you look at the schools, which is important, which the high schools are now in the program to be looked at for potential restoration, since that was built in the 50s or before, that has been redone twice during the time period that Elm Street was there for the police and fire. The high school was redone twice. It was done once in the 60s, and it was done once in the early 2000s. Of course, the Osgood School was built where it currently is today by the Deer Hill, and then the Deer Hill was resized as well. So when we look at the final amounts of buildings that we have to look at, we do have the police and fire. We do have the high school. The Osgood is the way it is. It's generally brand new, even though it's a few years old. Same thing with the Deer Hill. But that high school process will go through a process, which will take, a certain amount of time. And then the only thing left after that will be down yonder would be the water department, which comes, from a different area, and that would be in the 2030s. So we basically have most things checked off the list. We do have a couple of buildings which are going to cost money, but we need to look at the value of what we're getting from it. Now, from what the police officers have said here tonight, when you look at the types of crimes that we're getting here in Cohasset from what we did back in the 60s and the type of policing that was done from the 60s today, it's totally different story. The certifications that they have to have, the type of policing. I just pulled up on the internet tonight. There was a gentleman putting cameras in the bathrooms in our library who was arrested. That type of crime would never have happened 30 years ago. It's happening today. The outside external forces that come in this town, we have theft rings that have gone through our CVS. We've had people from out of town come and steal cars from this town who are from the northern part of the state. And then we internally in town have issues. There's domestic violence. There's all sorts of things that have happened. And if people remember, we actually have someone with a chainsaw come into the police department here at 62 Elm as well. And then finally, for our police department, if you remember, unfortunately, with the tragedy that happened with the Walsh murder, with that incident that happened, that tragic incident, when that happened, and of course it first started off as a missing persons before it became a potential murder, as it went through with the investigations that happened, it was our police department that was leaned on quite heavily by the district attorney and the state police. And it wasn't just for the investigative portion of it. What they really need from our police department in getting it was integrity, because the integrity for the DA's office and the state police have been compromised with previous cases, if you all remember. And it was our police department that had the integrity, and that was put on for everyone, not just here in the county, but for the world, because it was an internationally covered incident. And they showed their integrity, their professionalism, and it resulted in a conviction on a circumstantial case. So with all those things being said, I think the need has been established. The amount of police that we had back in the 1960s that the building was built for, it's more than double now. The space is not adequate. And if we want to have the protection, the safety for this town, we're going to have to look to do this station. And then, of course, the other buildings in town as we can deal with them. And so I would hope that people would look at that and look at not just counting the numbers, but look at the value that we're going to get as a town going forward to finally bring this town into the 21st century with all of its operations. And that includes not just police and fire, it includes the schools as well. We have everything has to be brought to the 21st century standards so that we can have the town that we want. And then finally, I've seen on the internet that some people have said, well, why don't we just send our prisoners to Situate or Hingham, or maybe get a merger and acquisition and go back to Hingham or something like that. For all of you who don't know the history, we broke away from Hingham for a reason in 1770, okay? And the reason is the people in Cohasset were quite independent, and they were not happy with the services they were getting from Hingham. It was far away for them to go to town meeting back in the horse and cart, and they weren't getting the services. If we were ever to start merging some of our major services with these towns, I will assure you, we will be paying the money because it ain't gonna be for free, and we're not gonna like the services we're gonna get. That's why Cohasset became Cohasset. So that we could be independent and we could vote for and we could have the services that we wanted, not what Hingham wanted or the other towns. So with all that being said, I thank everyone for their comments tonight.
Do we have any other comments?
Mr. Pratt has his hand up.
Yes, I just want to echo what Mr. Callahan said about kicking the can down the road with a couple of examples. We lost sight of taking care of our water system back in the 90s. And on Memorial Day weekend, 1996, it actually broke. People on Linden Drive turned on their faucet, no water came out. And that set off a spending spree of $33 million to bring our water system back into a usable state. And then following not long after that, we thought we could get away for who knows how long without fixing our Little Harbor sewer issues. And we finally were backed into a corner with a state order. And we embarked upon the largest public works project town of Cohasset has ever undertaken to sewer the Little Harbor area. So let's not wait until we have the same kind of a break or disaster at the police headquarters before we move this project on. I think Tom is right. Its time has come. Thank you.
And I'd like to jump on that for a moment. As Mr. Pratt said, we did lose sight of many things. And I think it was back in 1990 or even before that, we lost sight of our police and fire departments as well. We had a perfect opportunity to build on the corner of Sawyer and Red. But we threw that opportunity away for a heck of a lot less to bring that back up, at least into the late 20th century. It happened again, other opportunities. We kicked them away. The problem that we've encountered here is maybe in the past, we should have done holistic overviews, overrides at a different point in time. We haven't. We've kicked the can down the road. And as something fails, we've got to fix it. I respect your question about asking about what fire is going to cost. I hope that was answered. But there is an overview. A lot of talented people sat down in these committees. Everybody was welcome to step on. These are all citizens committees. You said that the project has zero credibility, Ms. Francona. I'm gonna dispute that. And I can bounce back to the 10.5 million if anybody wants to use it again. That's been explained ad nauseum.
All I heard was inflation. Is that the reason the
And why you said zero credibility? So I'm not going to get into a question and answer with you. I'm just saying I thought
inflation was 3x the price?
I had 10.5 million. No, nobody said that. And you'll hear an explanation again at town meeting. We'll lay it out because I was part of that board. Right? No intent to deceive. But what we did at the time, and I'll answer it just in a layman's term, we did not go into studies. We had a building that was available. We saw we had a best property right up the street that we could get. We went in with the best intentions because some people worked all very hard on some of the buildings in town that didn't pass. So we gone up, boarded studies on a building that we weren't allowed into yet. We could look at it as an overview, saw it, great location, which it is. But we didn't commission studies that cost millions of dollars, architectural plans, site reviews that would have cost. So we thought we were doing the right thing. Hindsight, having 20/20 vision, I wish we had done it differently. But again, there was no intent to deceive. And that'll be explained fully. I'm just giving you a quick overview. So what we have done is we have moved the cans down the road. No, things have been allowed to deteriorate. We're at an inflection point. Working with our fire department, we came up with what we hope as a committee unanimously came up with what we perceive is the best plan going forward. We want to fix 44 Elm Street, but we'll be working with the fire department to ascertain their needs. So no one can give you a price at a point in time. We'd love to get a study commission, but that's working again with the union, with the chiefs, and finding out what's going to suit their needs. And also, as a money saving item, that's where the secondary bays come in up at King Street. So we can, in an emergency situation, put a fire apparatus up there. God forbid we had that 50-year flood. We can put an ambulance up there. We could utilize that garage for any other needs. They were repairing during the blizzard. They were repairing vehicles in the street, in the snow. We don't have space. A number of people brought that up. And also gives us the opportunity, and again, in working with the fire department, with the unions, as the town grows, if we find a need and we find that we have to, and the budget for staffing, we'll approach that holistically, working with the department. But that bay will come in handy at any point in time. And so to put a price right now on Elm that we don't have, we had some preliminaries early, but every time we kick them down the road, it's going to get more expensive. And our police don't have a home right now. They don't. And I've heard these gentlemen speak. We don't want to lose them. And that's my point about the fire and the police department working together. I wish we had a crystal ball that we could say, okay, it's going to cost 4, 7 to 10 million, 44 Elm Street. We don't have that figure yet.
Not a crystal ball, it's forecasting.
Well, I call it a crystal ball, different words. So thank you for the correction. And if anybody else wants to speak, that's fine too. But that's what I would say is we can forecast all we want, but forecast also, sun sometimes turns to rain. We don't expect it. So I would leave it at that. This is an important project. How many more years can we kick it down with perfect science?
Okay, so I'd just like to make a couple of comments. I can't really improve upon Mr. Farag's eloquent recitation of, our building history and all of that. But, to come back to a conversation that has been had and we have it, about the schools, we have it at the coffee shop. We talk about what we value in this town. And I don't think what we value in this town is an either or. We value public safety and we value education. We value the harbor, we value, the interior, the wooded parks and reservations. We value each other as friends and neighbors, and we value those people who work in town. And I think we're at this point where we need to act on our values. And I think that, we have a proactive plan, as evidenced at our joint meeting on the school budget, about looking forward in terms of what are we going to value it from a budgetary perspective going forward in FY28 and beyond. And it's not one or the other. And having been in this town a long time, I don't think we should try to force one or the other. We need to find a way to make it all work. And Mr. Pratt articulated at the outset, what this project means is $520 on average annually for the median assessed home at $1 million. Do I value public safety for $520 a year? I do. So that's what we hear a lot. What is this going to cost us? What is going to be the impact? So that's really all I wanted to say. Is there anyone else that had any comments or questions? So Mrs. Stino and Miss Franklin, are your boards voting tonight or are they voting next week?
We're going to vote on Wednesday on advisory.
Okay.
And we are voting on the 23rd, correct?
Okay, on Monday? Okay.
Yes.
So I think even though our agenda said vote, I think we will vote as well next week. I'd like to thank Mr. Pilata and the architect, and most importantly, the Cohasset Public Safety Facility Committee, which had a very difficult charge. And I appreciate the hard work, the debate, the options, the choices, and how they got us to what they are presenting as their best plan. Are there any other comments?
No, I'd just say thank you to the capital budget, the public safety committee and the advisory board. As a part of the process, and I've watched the meetings on all of them, and they've, poked and prodded and gone through, and there's been great debates about the ins and the outs of the project, which is part of the process. So, I just want to thank them for everything that they've done throughout this time period and for the budget as well. But
Okay, thank you. Ms. Leary, we have on the select board agenda 44 Elm Street. Is there anything to discuss regarding that?
So I would like to broach the topic of 44 Elm Street. As Ms. Frangona said, we need a plan moving forward. Part of that plan would be looking at design of 44 Elm Street for the fire department. We are going to ask capital budget to review the design figure for that. It's approximately $150,000 that we're going to ask capital budget to look at within their offerings.
On Monday, you mean, please?
Just for clarification, when is capital budget meeting?
Monday.
To discuss that. Got it. Thank you.
And Michelle, are these kind of the big plans? Or are they just schematic designs?
This is just a schematic design to get us to schematic design.
Okay.
So it's programming and schematic design.
Okay.
Question asked. Madam Chair,
Yes,
do we have to wait for advisory to vote?
do we have to? It's protocol and best practice. I mean, would you like a motion? I don't know even how to word it. Perhaps Mr. Callahan has more of the legal language of that sense of the a sense of the meeting. I think
Am I on the payroll as town council now? Good.
no, but we can all tap into our professions. I think I feel it's clear that the 3 select board members in attendance are in strong support of this project. And we're very respectful of the work that the committee did. And I think we should, I think I would like to wait to hear what advisory, how it shakes out with advisory and capital. But if you would like to make a motion, we can make a motion.
No, I'll defer to protocol.
Okay. So, Mrs. Estino, do you want to make a motion we still have a few more things on our agenda. If I'm reading this correctly, yep. So I don't know if you want to, if capital advisory want to stay or if they want to adjourn, this is the time.
Does anybody want to stay?
I'll move.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Tom Callahan,
Aye.
Mark Cameron,
Aye.
Michael Flaherty,
Aye.
Diane Kennedy. Aye. Courtney Murphy,
Aye.
Mark Maggi,
Aye.
and Gina Stino. Aye. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Yeah, so capital budget is also going to put forth a motion to adjourn.
Second motion.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Case Meyer.
Okay, thank you very much.
Kathy first.
Chris, I should get you.
Thanks, Susan Franklin, Jared. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Pratt, you want to have a motion for your committee to adjourn?
Public
Thank
Safety
you.
Committee, could I have a motion to adjourn?
Why, I make a motion.
Second.
Second.
Roll call, Rich
It's seconded
Kinship.
by Mr. Ashton.
Roll call, Rich Kinship.
Oh, yeah, this is very long.
Doug McGregor.
Present. Aye.
Don Stasko.
How are you?
Glenn Pratt, aye. Will Ashton.
Yeah.
I think that's everybody. Dan
Dan
Tarpey.
Tarpey said aye too.
Yeah, okay. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay.
Madam Chairman, if you just want to wait a minute, as we have a few people dispersing, and then we can maybe carry on.
Yes. Yeah. And I see that Mr. Grady has
Okay.
left the table.
Oh, there you go, Steve. If there's any conversation you want to take in the hallway, because we just have a few things.
Not much. That's something to do.
Yeah.
Hang out.
No, I'm reading.
If you could just take one moment,
Yep. That's
Paul's out
fine.
of the room, and I'm gonna go out of the room for one moment. I'll be right back. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Leary, we are on a brief break until Mr. Grady and Mr. Farag get back. So for the question regarding the operational costs, is that heating, utility, snow plowing, is that all of those costs, or are there other operational costs?
It's typical operational cost. Mr. Pilata said he'd have something to us by Monday
Okay.
or Friday.
Okay.
He said it in passing.
Okay. And Ms. Francona indicated that there were lots of materials. Well, not, I shouldn't say lots, that's my word. There were materials sent out for their review prior to this. We didn't get anything.
Yeah, so Kathy Forrest shared from a capital perspective, some of the documents that have gone through. I can forward you the email with all the links. It has benchmarking information in it.
Yeah, it's not, it felt a little awkward.
I also just want to clarify. So we keep referencing Sutton as being such a small station. The Sutton station is actually 18,594 square feet. It's not 6,000 square feet. I just think we have to be careful when we're talking about numbers and how big things are, how small things are. And a lot of that is, everyone's doing their best to pull numbers and benchmark. But when we continue to, state numbers of other stations, I just want to be sure that we're stating the correct facts.
Completely agreed, and pursuant, to our conversation at our last meeting, we should get some standards set, and when we benchmark, and it's not going to be an absolute overlay, in terms of every municipal function. Schools might want to have different benchmarking. I mean, when I was benchmarking for the schools, the academic performance, it was always the South Shore neighboring towns, because when you think of families moving, they're not choosing North Shore or South Shore. They're choosing, if they've made the decision to the South Shore, it's what town are they going to move to? And then I would put in some aspirational school districts that are always in the top 5 in the state to say, okay, what are the very best of the best doing? And then what are the people around us? But, there is some validity to the DART analysis on DESE, which does take like or similar towns, from an enrollment perspective. So we should look at it. And also, it's the things that you don't see in a DOR report, such as the fact that we have a rocky coastline where a life raft off a vessel washed up on last week. And we have a harbor, and we have multiple beaches, private and public, and we have a drug addiction treatment center, and we have an assisted living center, and we have 3 recreational forests and parks. So, you think of the skill set public safety needs to attend to an emergency on the water, and then you think of the skill set public safety needs to attend to an emergency in the middle of Wampatuck or Wheelwright. They're not the same. So those, earmarks should also be noted. I don't think Sutton has a harbor.
Well, as discussed in previous meetings, I think once we have this warrant in this budget voted on. I think when we move towards our next phase, which will be looking at overrides in the future, I think we have to fulfill the need for the benchmarking study and commission a group to really dive into that. So we have all the correct data moving forward.
Yeah.
We're all back.
Okay, so we're all back.
Actually, maybe.
Where's he going?
I'm right here.
He's here in the room. He's just
here.
getting a drink of water. Yeah.
Oh, okay. He's pretty thirsty on his birthday.
Yeah.
I didn't want to embarrass him in front of everybody.
There's still enough people here. Good job.
Well, I was embarrassed on my birthday. Okay. Okay, so we talked about Elm Street. I mean, there's, the thing about Elm Street, it would be awesome to say, okay, well, here's the design, plan one or whatever it was. And based on today's dollars, it would be X amount of money, but who knows what those dollars are going to be in 3 to 5 years from now. And then do we end up where we are now? Well, you said it was going to be 5 million, and now you're saying it's going to be 10 million. It's kind of a chicken and an egg. I mean, it's very difficult. It's not simple. It's not like the private sector.
Well, we walk into the $10.5 million trap again. All that.
Right. Right.
Well, I think there should be some general number, but it's just put there with the caveats, and, subject to inflation, subject to these other factors. But I think people want to know, is this another $20 million project, or is it more of a $5 million project? Or, where is it on the board, on the spectrum of costs? And I think, generally speaking, you can do that because, as I said, on the Elm Street, if the one gets built on 3A, you're generally going walls in on what's there on Elm. You're not adding on to it. You're not going up or sideways or whatever. So, yes, there's going to be costs for, the plumbing and all this other stuff it needs. But I think that's going to encapsulate what the costs are, and it's also going to limit them as well. So, yeah.
And Alan, could I add, what we have to emphasize too is in the secondary phase up at King, we're freeing up 44 Elm from some heavy reconstruction costs. I think we talked about that. As far as raising the roofs, there's logistics just where the physical plant sits itself.
Right.
What's behind it? They have the apartments, all those units. The parking is not is minimal.
Yeah.
And and the people like Tim, his group, who's shown up at every meeting, and they have their thoughts, they have their input, and we're not looking at a terrible project.
Right.
It's just a matter of we have a space. We explained the staffing. Staffing is something that we're not even contemplating right now.
Yeah.
So it's just getting them up to the way it's going to be safe and habitable for these guys. I don't see it as everything's expensive, but as a turnbuckle project, because we're leaving out, we're not triggering hopefully ADA, and we're just going to be adding the bay. And when number 3 goes up to Elm, if it passes, King, I'm sorry, then 44 Elm is freed up for the 2 ambulances. It's an emphasis on safety.
Yeah.
And staffing and answering the needs of not only the town, but the guys serving the town.
Yeah. So we know that, Diane Kennedy asked the question, raising the building on 135 and building from scratch is a lot more money. If there were a suitable, parcel of land on 3A that we could build on, it's not going to be less than $27 million. Right? A brand new build. And so if we get it down to 18,000 square feet instead of 23,000 square feet, I don't know how much the savings is. Okay. Michelle, do you have an update?
I don't.
Okay. Do we have any select board updates? Mr. Frog, Mr. Grady?
No, I think we said it all.
Nope. Okay. We have no topics. We have no minutes. We have a meeting next Tuesday night, heavy on warrant articles. We have some licenses and permits and events, but mostly warrant articles. Okay, so then can I have a motion to adjourn at 9:19?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call, please.
Paul Grady, aye.
David Frog, aye.
Ellen Mar, aye. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.